Should the New York Giants try to add recently released wide receiver Gabe Davis to their roster? I'll give you my thoughts on that and more coming up next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work, as well as that of my writing team. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, Giant fans, on today's Locked On Giants program, we're going to take a look at the big question that I know popped up very early on Wednesday morning, and that is, should the Giants kick the tires on Gabe Davis, the receiver who was with Buffalo originally, signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, was played for them for 1 year, and then was released. So we're going to explore the pros and the cons of Gabe Davis and if that move makes sense for the Giants. Then in segment 2, we're going to do a preview of Giants rookie minicamp, which starts on Friday, runs Friday and Saturday. Those are the 2 days in which the players will be on the field. So I'm going to give you some of the storylines that I think are going to take center stage for that rookie minicamp and how I kind of think things might play out. And then finally, who amongst the Giants draft picks is their secret weapon? I'm going to tell you who I think is the secret weapon and why. All right. So that is what we're going to cover on today's program. Again, welcome in to everybody. All right. Let's get things started. Let's talk about Gabe Davis. Now, Gabe Davis was originally a Buffalo Bill. If you go back several years when he was initially drafted, Joe Shane, the Giants general manager, who at the time was the assistant GM for the Bills, personally scouted and did a lot of work on Gabe Davis. When Davis was a free agent, there were reports that the Giants were looking to add him to their roster, but of course they couldn't get him. He ended up signing with the Jaguars. Now, Davis signed basically kind of a bulky contract with the Jaguars, which, according to my colleague over at Locked On Jaguars, Tony Wiggins, the contract just was an ugly one. It wasn't one that was going to be kept. The Jaguars, of course, brought in a new coaching staff. They brought in a new GM. So Gabe Davis, between all that and the fact that he was injured last year, he kind of became a casualty. So, you factor in the acquisition of Travis Hunter in the draft for the Jaguars. They signed Dyami Brown. They also have Brian Thomas Jr. So there really was no room for Gabe Davis, which is why he was cut, amongst others. So should the Giants kick the tires on him? Well, first let's talk about the Giants' current receiver situation. Now, receiver was one of those positions for the Giants that I thought was a sneaky need. Even though they brought back Darius Slayton on a 3-year deal, I thought that receiver was still a sneaky need. And the reason why I thought that was because, you've got Malik Neighbors, who's wide receiver 1, Slayton is WR2, and Wan'Dale Robinson, who is entering the final year of his deal, wide receiver 3. All right. The Giants, they have Jalen Hyatt, but again, why this kid's not getting on the field? I have my theories about it, but I need to confirm if my theories are correct before I'll say anything. But if you look at what the Giants have done in the offseason, and this kind of makes sense here, but a lot of the guys that they have brought in free agency via for the receiver position, these are guys who are taller receivers, like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". And I don't think that's by accident. You've got Russell Wilson as your quarterback. He's what, 5'11"? So you ideally want to get him bigger targets because the bigger the target, the easier it is to see them through all the muck that you will face up front with, the action in the trenches and with defenders getting their hands up to try and, blur your vision or obstruct your vision rather, for, in terms of the passing lanes. So the Giants have brought in a lot of taller guys, and I don't think that's by accident. I think that is because it's designed to help Russell Wilson be successful. Not just Russ Wilson, but also down the line to help Jackson Dart for when he ultimately takes over the position. And if Jameis Winston needs to step in, it'll help him as well. So there's no such thing as having too many big receivers on your team. And really, the Giants haven't done a good enough job of adding taller receivers on the offense, which I think has been part of the problem with the offense. All right, so getting back to Gabe Davis, this is a guy who, first off, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, what about the contract? Well, because um, his contract was terminated by the Jaguars, it's not like the Giants are going to inherit anything. All right, the contract is going to go off the books. But here's the thing: Gabe Davis could potentially come cheaper for the Giants because with the Jaguars this year, he had a $2 million option that had to be picked up by March 12th. So presumably, if he was on the roster, that option was picked up. He was owed $1.5 million in guaranteed money off his base salary. So that would be paid by the Jaguars, not by whatever team acquires him or signs him. So those factors alone, you would think, okay, if you're the Giants, why not take a 1-year flyer on Gabe Davis, who was coming off of the knee injury? It was that slowed him down last year. I think he had a torn meniscus, which cut into his playing time. But is it really that big of an investment to spend on a guy who is a tallish receiver, who has been a productive receiver, who knows the offense that the Giants run because he played in it when Brian Dable was his offensive coordinator in Buffalo, a guy who's a good locker room guy, he's a leader, can't have too many of those in the locker room, a guy who can win the contested catch battle. Again, up until really the last couple of years, and again, because of injuries, he didn't really do that. But earlier in his career, he was winning the contested catch battles using his height and his catch high point to outmuscle the smaller defenders. And, here's the other thing. He's a good blocker. All right. So, if you need a downfield blocker, the Giants have Darius Slayton, who's probably their best downfield blocker amongst the receivers. Who's to say that adding another one like Gabe Davis wouldn't be, a bad thing? I don't think it would be at any rate. And here's the other thing: if you add Gabe Davis to the mix, now maybe you can play Malik Neighbors in the slot a little bit. Okay, now last year, according to Pro Football Focus, Malik Neighbors played just 27.1% of his snaps in the slot. All right. And he had an 89.4 receiving grade when he played in the slot, which was better than his overall receiving grade. Not by much, but still better. So I think his overall receiving grade was like 87.1. He did better actually when in the slot. So moving Malik Neighbors into the slot, maybe that reduces the number of slot snaps you have to get to Wan'Dale Robinson, and it opens up a whole new dimension, if you will, on offense. So really, I can't see too many downsides to not signing Davis, to not making, an inquiry. I think he would be a good fit with the Giants. Now, of course, the question is Giants don't have any money right now, but you know what? That's going to change. Giants are going to probably restructure Brian Burns' contract to clear up some space. They do need to open up some cap space to sign their draft picks. So that's an option. Obviously, reworking Andrew Thomas's contract, that's an option. Same thing with Dexter Lawrence's contract if you need to. So there are things the Giants can do to open up cap space, and they will open up cap space because right now they're like dead last, according to Over the Cap, in total cap space. And there's just no way they're going to be able to sign anybody until they open up more space. So I'm actually anticipating word of that coming down probably in the next few days for the Giants. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. So anyway, I'm all in favor of Gabe Davis, the Giants kicking the tires on Gabe Davis. I want to hear what you guys think. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Because, maybe I'm off base on this. I don't think I am, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. All right, coming up next, the Giants rookie minicamp begins on Thursday night with the rookies coming in for a meeting, but they'll be on the field Friday and Saturday. The media will have full access on Friday and Saturday. So what storylines will I be paying attention to, despite the fact that it's just a rookie minicamp and you're not going to see a whole lot as far as like 11 on 11? I'm going to tell you what I'll be paying attention to and what interests me right after this. Hey, Giant fans, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Game Time's all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you will pay. Whether you're looking for tickets to sports events, theater, comedy, concerts, or whatever, Game Time has you covered. So go on and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that promo code is Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL, to get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Coming up on Friday, Mark Schofield is going to be my guest. He is scheduled to be my guest. Mark Schofield does a really, really good job of breaking down quarterback play. And of course, you can probably guess what the topic is going to be all about. It's going to be about Jackson Dart, but we'll probably, I would imagine, do a little conversation about Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and how they fit into this offensive system with the Giants. So Mark Schofield is the scheduled guest. And then over the weekend, I will have a wrap-up show from the rookie minicamp. I will drop that probably on Sunday, possibly Saturday night, but I'm thinking closer to Sunday will probably be when I'm able to drop that show for you. So I'll recap everything from the rookie minicamp, and of course I'll have shorts along the way, video shorts on YouTube if anything major happens or any storylines or anything like that need to be mentioned, just so y'all keep up with everything that's going on from the Giants rookie minicamp. All right, speaking of Giants rookie minicamp, as I mentioned before the break, it gets underway Thursday night. The rookies are due in. They're going to get fitted for their equipment. They're going to have their physicals. They're going to have a team meeting, get the schedule for the weekend, be given a tour of the facility to show them where the cafeteria is, the men's room, the locker room, all that good stuff. And then they get on the field Friday and Saturday for a full workout. Okay, now, the rookie minicamp is not going to be a traditional practice. And by that, I mean, we'll probably see more individual drills, maybe some 7-on-7. I don't think we will see any 11-on-11. So it's not like, we can get full evaluation based on the one practice. I think Brian Daboll said, Jackson Dart, the quarterback that they drafted at the bottom of the first round, he'll get to throw, obviously, but it's going to be more or less an orientation for these guys. So that being said, here are a few things that I'm going to be paying attention to and that I'm interested in seeing. Obviously, this has been a big storyline for the last several days, is the rookie jersey numbers. Now that we'll probably know what the jersey numbers are going to be before we even get to the rookie minicamp. The Giants usually release that like on a Thursday, the Thursday before the start of the camp. So, a lot of people are like, okay, what number is Abdul Carter going to wear? What number is Jackson Dart going to wear? Because, they want to buy jerseys of these players. And folks, as I've said before, and as I said on yesterday's show, in which I picked out ideal numbers for the Giants rookies, wait until training camp is done, because numbers are subject to change. And I'd hate to see anybody invest in a jersey in a particular number, and then they find out that the player for whom they bought the jersey for is not going to be that number moving forward. So it's always good to kind of wait, unless you've got that type of jersey where you can swap out numbers, which I don't even know if they make them. But anyway, all right. So jersey numbers is going to be a big topic, given, Abdul Carter wanting 56, wanting 11. So jersey numbers is going to be a big topic, given that Abdul Carter wanted number 56, wanted number 11. What number does he end up getting amongst other, the rest of the rookie class? All right. I mentioned Jackson Dart. He's going to do some throwing. Now, remember, in these rookie mini camps, as in the OTAs and the mandatory mini camp, these are non-contact, non-padded practices. So things we can look at would include footwork. We can look at throwing motion, release point. We can look at a bunch of things with Jackson Dart. How is he commanding the huddle? How is he, looking in the drills that he's asked to do? So these are all things that I'm sure people are going to be really paying attention to. I know I'll be taking close notes on that. I'm actually going to bring a little video camera with me, and as long as the Giants allow me to videotape the practices, I'll be able to do that. I won't be able to show the video, unfortunately, on this channel, but we'll probably be able to show it on my Twitter account if you want to follow me there. All right. This is an important one. This doesn't really have anything to do with the rookies per se, but this is something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and that is who's going to be on the radio calling the plays for the offense. Now, remember, Brian Dable, at the end of last year, he said everything was on the table, including whether or not he continued into a second season as the Giants play caller. So usually, at least this is how it went last year, when we got to the rookie minicamp and we saw Brian Dable calling the plays, that's when we kind of knew that he was going to be the play caller moving forward. And sure enough, he kept the role when OTAs opened up. He kept the role, into the summer. It was kind of, he wouldn't confirm it, but you kind of could put two and two together. I think Dable will probably keep the play calling. I don't know that I agree that he should, but I think he will, if for no other reason, because, he's going to have a very heavy hand in developing Jackson Dart. And again, as I've said before, if Mike Kafka leaves, and I believe this is the last year of Mike Kafka's contract, I could see, them wanting to keep continuity for the quarterbacks. So I would not be shocked if Brian Dable keeps the play calling. But we'll see. Again, does he have the radio or does he not? That will tell us the story. Okay, the next one that I think a lot of people are going to want to know, and that is, how is Abdul Carter being deployed? Now, I mentioned to you that I don't think it's going to be a traditional practice, so it's not like you're going to see Abdul Carter spying a quarterback or lining up as an inside linebacker or lining up on the right side or the weak side or whatever. But you can kind of watch him in the drills and see what they're doing, what they're teaching him. And if they do any 7-on-7, is he involved in that? What do they have him doing? So that's going to be obviously something to keep an eye on. And then finally, this is always a very popular topic and one that I think, warrants paying attention to, and that's the UDFA and tryout players. All right, the Giants are bringing in a bunch of UDFAs. I think it's something like 11 or 12 that they're going to bring in. How do these guys look? Any, potential sleepers amongst those picks? So that's something to look at. And then you have the tryout players. The Giants usually leave a spot or two open so that if somebody really impresses in the tryout, from the tryout group, they're able to sign that guy. That's how they got Elijah Chatman last year, right? He came in as a tryout player, impressed, signed a contract as a kind of a UDFA at the time, made the 53-man roster. We know how that ended up. So that's something else to be keeping an eye on. Now, I know a lot of you are probably saying, well, do you have any names in mind? The answer is no, I don't. I need to see these guys. And, it's interesting. I think on Friday there is rain in the forecast for northern New Jersey. Hopefully it doesn't rain because it's just been so nice out lately. I'm hoping we actually get to be outside. But yeah, If it does rain, we will be in the field house, and usually the defensive line drills and the offensive line drills are right there in front of us where they have us stand. So those are the position groups we really get an up close and personal look at. But like I said, I'm going to have a video camera which can zoom in, and as long as the Giants allow us to videotape stuff, and they do allow a certain period for that, I'm going to see what I can't pick up and put in my notebook. So I'll have that. Of course, I will also have articles over on New York Giants on SI regarding who said what. All the draft picks will be up at the podium. We'll also have an opportunity, I believe, to talk to the undrafted free agents if we request them. So there's a lot that's going to go down those 2 days at the Giants rookie minicamp. I'll be there for both days. And like I said, I will have a wrap-up show for you. I'll probably tape that show on either Saturday night or Sunday morning. Depends on what time I get back Saturday night. So that's what I'm looking for with the rookie mini camp, and we'll see what else develops. All right. So again, going to be some veterans mixed in there. Some guys from last year that are eligible for the rookie mini camp. There'll be some guys who are going to try out who are veterans who aren't with any team and that are eligible to be at the rookie mini camp. So it's going to be a busy but hopefully productive weekend for the New York Giants and their draft class. All right, coming up next, the Giants' secret weapon from amongst their draft class. Who is it and why is it this guy? I will tell you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts who are ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Upwork offers fast and easy hiring. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from, giving you options to find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and to grow your business today. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And in this segment, who is the Giants' secret weapon? A guy who I think we're not really talking about a lot from the draft class, but a guy that I think is very exciting, is a very intriguing player. And I'm going to tell you who he is and why this guy is somebody that I think we all need to pay a lot of attention to. That guy is third round draft pick, Darius Alexander, defensive lineman. Now, something that people aren't really talking about, and as I was putting my notes together, I said to myself, my gosh, they're kind of doing the same thing here on the defensive line as they did on quarterback. And by that, I mean, if you look at what the Giants did in free agency on the defensive line, they brought in a lot of veterans for that unit. All right. So now they add Darius Alexander from a smaller program, Toledo. And, the idea is to bring him along. I mean, I do think, unlike Jackson Dart, I think Darius Alexander is going to get on the field this year as a rookie, but maybe not full time, at least not right away, because they've got the veterans who can, hold down the fort until Darius Alexander smooths out any, rough spots in his game. But there's a lot of promise there with Darius Alexander. Okay, so what do I like about him and why do I think he could be the secret weapon? Well, he's a 3 tech, could potentially line up next to Dexter Lawrence, all right, for the long term. I always mention how when Dexter Lawrence lined up next to Leonard Williams before Leonard Williams was traded, they were like Batman and Robin. All right, so it was like pick your poison. Who are you going to get your hands on? And lately, ever since Leonard Williams was traded away, Dexter Lawrence just seems to draw double the amount of hands on him than probably he should. Now, to his credit, he fights through it and he often wins, but If you can make things a little easier on the big guy who's getting up there in age, let's not miss that fact there. If you can make things a little bit easier on Dexter Lawrence with a guy who's just as capable of drawing, extra hands on him, then go for it. I mean, why wouldn't you? All right. Now, Darius Alexander, an underrated part of his game is his pass rush, right? He's got pass rush potential, 7.5 sacks in his final 2 seasons. Can't ignore that, folks. All right. Now, initially you look at him and you say, he's just a chew down run stuffer. No, I think eventually this kid's going to be an every down player. And he is going to be part of a pass rush. And you know what? You can never have too many pass rushers, as they say. All right. He is a guy who can also play the nose tackle if they need him to. Why is this important? Well, think back to last year. How many times did we see it? Dexter Lawrence came off the field for a breather, and whoever they plugged in there in his place, the opposing team went right at that spot, and often with success. So if they can build up, the coaching staff can build up Darius Alexander to where if he needs to come in and substitute for Dexter Lawrence because Lawrence needs a blow, then you know what? As long as there's not that big of a drop off, the Giants have plugged a very big but yet underrated hole on that team, and that is, who is Dexter Lawrence's understudy when he needs a breather, or if God forbid he can't play for whatever the reason. So that is a huge thing with Darius Alexander, making him one of the secret weapons. All right, now what else to like about him? He's mature. All right, Darius Alexander has been raising a 6-year-old son. So this is a guy who is going to come in. He's not going to mess around. He's going to take things seriously. I think he understands that, this is his profession. This is how he's going to make his living. All too often you see some rookies come in and they don't take it seriously. They think, I made it to the big leagues. I'm here in an NFL camp. Getting to the NFL camp is step one. Staying in an NFL camp is step two, and probably the longest step, and probably the one that you have to keep proving yourself day in and day out. So with Darius Alexander, you have a guy who is mature enough to understand that, who is going to come in with a lot of raw talent that can be refined. And you know what? He's coming into a very good situation with defensive line coach Andre Patterson, assistant defensive line coach Brian Cox. Those two men are going to work wonders with Darius Alexander. And I believe, look, we know what Carter can do. We know about, Cam Scattaboo. But I believe when it's all said and done, that Darius Alexander could potentially be the next OCU Manura. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not saying, OC in the literal sense of the word, but OCU Manura, who I know played defensive end, not defensive tackle. OC came from a small school. If you remember back in the day when he was drafted, he came out of Troy, a small school program. And they worked with him, they developed him, and he became a mainstay on the defense. So when I compare Darius Alexander to OCU Manura, that's what I'm talking about. Alexander's coming from a smaller program, has a lot of talent, much like OCU Manura did when he first came out. And I think Darius Alexander is going to develop into a force next to Dexter Lawrence. I'm really excited to see that 1-2 punch. I don't think it's going to necessarily happen right away. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll see how Darius Alexander comes through the mini camp, the OTAs, the summer training camp. Things can change. So there's a lot of promise there, and that's why I think Darius Alexander could be the secret weapon, if you will, of this Giants draft class. And is a guy who I'm really looking forward to seeing, what he brings, in person, and just hearing from him and all that good stuff. So, all right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here. And be sure you tune in tomorrow. Again, my scheduled guest is Mark Schofield. We're going to be talking quarterbacks, so I hope you will tune in. And then, of course, over the weekend, I'll have the mini camp report, the update for you with observations, notes, miscellaneous things, and so on. So that's what's coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow, Giant fans.